thank you for joining us on our live stream today, where we help educate business owners on what to expect of their IT support. And right now I have Gary with Ingrain IT joining us. Hello, Gary. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, Chris. How about yourself?
Doing well. You want to give us a quick overview of your company?
Sure. Ingrain has been around for about 14 years, although my personal experience goes back way to the 80s. We're a managed service provider, MSP, so we do flat rate IT for our customers and become their in-house IT department, even though we're outsourced. So,
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you for joining us today. And our topic that we're going to be discussing is the warning signs or red flags to look out for with your existing IT company and kind of what you should expect, of them. So these topics or items that we're going to be going over, you can use that information to talk to your IT company and just to make sure you don't get caught in kind of bad situations. It's going to be helpful for just any type of management, business owners. We just want to help educate and have you guys keep your company safe. Um, so on these warnings, Gary, um, are there any? I'm just trying to think of like an intro here on anything just overall that you've experienced. I mean, have you seen these type of issues where you're doing onboarding, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, this IT company never did this or that, or
I think it's a common occurrence. I mean, I don't think we've had an onboarding yet where there hasn't been some issue we've looked at and said, how did this exist for so long? An example was a backup that was actually doing incrementals for over 4 years.
Oh yeah.
Which means you have to go back to the very first backup and restore that and incrementally back up every single day for 4 years if something went wrong.
And then
there's
if any of those points failed, then the
Right.
whole thing is worthless.
Correct. And there's no visibility to that by a non-technical person. So if you're the business owner, you're expecting the backups are done. And the technical person is going, oh yeah, we're handling backups. But until somebody gives visibility on what does that mean from a continuity standpoint and start asking the questions, what happens if my server fails? How long will I be down? And most organizations, especially business owners, don't know what questions to ask. So They're really at the mercy. So an IT provider should be very upfront and make that a very routine conversation with you.
Yeah. It's I think kind of what you're saying, I totally agree on is you hire someone to do a job for you, IT, and you just expect that they're going to be doing everything correctly, staying on top of everything, and a lot of the times it's just totally not the case, but you don't know that.
Right.
And so we don't expect business owners to know the technical side, but open communication is a big item, and like on backups, just asking maybe even quarterly, can you give me a backup report? Just talk to me about your backups. You don't have to get technical, but can you show me reports of success and failures that you've addressed?
Right.
Get an idea.
Well, the other thing about backups we discovered too, and I think all the partners that I know manage this the right way, you got to be very leery of a small business owner when an organization is home growing some backup solutions. I mean,
for sure,
there are definitely pitfalls with that. You don't get the support. You don't get the brand behind it, the longevity, the kind of reoccurrence of what happens if certain things encounter problems. When you're a good managed service provider mid and you go back and find the right partners, there's very good confidence and experience with those tools. And where the stuff is being stored, right? It's being stored in secure data centers. It's not in some server rack in an open office, right, in Joe Blow IT's environment. Right. It is a dedicated storage facility that's secure and has compliance behind it.
Physical and not just security.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you got to ask the question.
Yeah. It's great. Where's my backup being stored? Is it at your office to where if you got robbed, my backups are gone, or there's a fire, my backups are gone, or you just, I don't know, stuck a fork in electrical socket and fried your electrical.
Right, right.
It's
Full
gonna eat my
isolation.
backups.
Yeah, exactly. How do I know that my data as a customer of yours is actually being isolated from other customers' data in a
Hmm.
right way, right? How do I know my encryption key is different than ABC company's encryption key? I don't know unless I ask those questions or
Hmm.
unless the service provider actually uses that. That's part of their posture, right? It's something that they know is important, and they're upfront and transparent that these are things that we do to protect you and your data and your business in multiple ways. That it's not just about the
Right.
restore; it's also about protecting the data as it sits at rest versus moving up to the backup server.
Yeah. And I know some IT companies that do exactly that. They're backing up, oh yeah, we're taking full snapshots of your server, but they're just transferring it to another server right at in their
Right,
office. And to
right,
me, that's one of those big red flags.
right.
Um, they're trying to cut costs, but the potential impact if something goes wrong is huge.
Well, for sure. And the other aspect of that, there's a big difference in conversation when it comes to backup and file recovery versus business continuity.
Hmm.
And most traditional providers still talk the language of disaster recovery. So they're saying, hey, I can restore a file from you from the cloud. Well, when a server fails, what is the dialogue and the plan in those environments? Good IT providers not only talk about the technology, they talk about the procedure and process.
Hmm.
Where do people go when, if you're a hospitality company, and all of a sudden your server's down? What's your standard operating procedure in that case? Do they start writing handshakes? What's the process? Because as soon as you don't have that process in place, even if it's temporary, you have a big loss of productivity from people. But if they have a
Hmm.
plan and they initiate that plan, which is part of an ongoing conversation, productivity loss is minimized. Even without the server, there's still ways to continue business function until the server function is restored again. And most people don't talk about those things. It's not part of an ongoing strategic dialogue.
Yeah, and making sure someone is always available to take action on it as well, and just
Right.
response times, expected downtime, and all that. Yeah, good, great
Yeah.
points.
The other aspect that ties into that is I talked about tool sets. With open source technology, it's easy for people to start to homegrown some type of technology, which is good. But there's also an investment by mid providers that say, when I go with a vendor, I want to make sure that there's integrity and support and security behind it. That usually requires paying for a specific tool. So that's another question to ask. Are you just, are you fronting this and doing all the labor in the back? Or are you actually working with the partner? Because the one thing you find about most of us mids, especially as it evolves into skill sets, we can't do it all. And finding the right expert in the right area solidifies both you as a customer, your confidence that the tools and the functionality is being performed, but should also solidify the fact that a provider knows their limits and they play to their strengths and find partners that actually play to their weaknesses. So as a customer, you get a very comprehensive solution, not just
Hmm.
I do it all, because no IT company can do it all today.
Yeah. Like, yeah, if they have their own flavor of backup program they made, I mean, think of their skill set of even programming that,
Right,
unknown bugs and discovery. Oh yeah, we it says it's been backing up, but actually there was this bug in this program.
right. Well, and think about it, right? Uh, Malcolm Gladwell actually said it takes about 10,000 hours to become an expert in something, right? So those of us in the IT space who really do this, that 10,000 hours for us has actually been a fast-paced, dynamic change that has been going on for years.
Mhm.
Even with that experience, there are things that we're constantly learning, right? So if you take that into very specific spaces like programming or whatever else, how can one person, again, know it all? So you try to find those right partners that actually fill that gap so the customer knows they're being protected because you have those experts in skill sets. When it comes down to rubber meets the road, digging down to the minutia detail, there is a true expert that can actually help and assist that.
Right, right. Yeah, and kind of a lead in to one of my next points is a good question. Okay, what if my server does go down and you're restoring it? Is there extra costs to that? Knowing what you're going to be paying before something happens. Are you going to be billed? Okay, now we're billing for after hours, and we're going on site, and we're replacing this hardware. Now all of a sudden it's this several $1,000 extra project that, it's not necessarily your fault even that server had a hardware failure, but you're going to be, dishing out thousands of dollars for it, just in labor.
Right. I like to go back to Muhammad Ali on this one, right? That's the rope-a-dope. A lot of, mid providers, or I should say non-mid providers, break fix. They will actually give you the allure of cost control and some other things. But at the downside of when something happens, you're going to pay for it. And in our experience as a mid provider, the last conversation I want to have with the customer when everything is falling apart and there's chaos ensuing is, oh, by the way, this is going to be a billable event. And I don't know what it's going to cost you, but it's going to cost you a lot because there's no balance.
But you have to do it.
Right, right. And for us, it's about skin in the game. We're trying to minimize your risk and take as much interest in that, making sure you're up, then you're actually contributing financially, which also means you have an obligation as a customer to make those right investments so we can effectively do that as well. So there's a balance there. But again, most break fix companies don't look at it from that perspective. It's very one-sided, meaning that if something takes place, they're going to make a lot of money and you're going to lose a lot of productivity. So you got to find the right provider that balances that.
And in those situations, not really have any choice in the matter. I mean, you're down. You have to get back up.
Right, right.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's putting them in a very bad situation that you're basically taking advantage of.
Right. And most of the time, you'll find in the situation that we've been brought into, the IT providers weren't actually diligent in advance to drive and talk about investing in technology, budgeting for replacements at a specific time, budgeting for and planning for replacement of a line of business application or upgrade of a SQL Server license or whatever else. So when those events take place, it's because things have gotten to the point of so aged, they've now really extended the return on investment to the point where they've increased their risk significantly. And nobody has those conversations in advance. And those are a very big dialogue to have. The more you plan, even if it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, the better prepared you are to make sure that you're investing in the right things at the right time and maximizing the leverage on your investment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Another item that I have listed to review, and I actually see this quite a lot, is you're talking with an IT company or a business, and let's just say you've done the sales pitch, and they're like, "Yep, let's start. We got to change IT companies." And so you're doing the onboarding. You say, "Okay, do you have all this equipment, all these servers, networking equipment, whatever? Do you have any documentation or passwords?" "Oh yeah, my IT company has that." Okay, it's your stuff. It's your company, your infrastructure. You need to have documentation yourself. And sometimes, they'll go and ask for documentation, but they'll provide just a very small amount or refuse to give you a copy. And that's just another huge red flag to me that I just see happen so often, is the IT company is not collecting any documentation and not giving you a copy of it.
Right. I mean, a good IT company, especially if it's a true win-win partnership, wants that documentation available on both sides, right? Meaning that they have access to it and the customer has access to it. An IT company should never actually hold hostage data required to manage a customer's infrastructure. Because as soon as they do that, it's not a true partnership, right? Again, it should be transparency. If I'm doing my, a good job as an MSP, as a provider, you may never need to use those passwords. But in the event that I'm not, whose fault is it? It's actually the IT provider's fault, and you should have access to those things so you can make your business decisions and not have to feel like, oh, if I want to make a change, I don't have access to that. So you have to stick for fear of, being locked out, you should always have access to your administrative passwords, your backup passwords, or at least consistent visibility, and knowing that if you request for them, they can provide that information, within minutes notice.
Yeah, because another thing to think about, say, okay, I'm paying them to do that, so, I'm trusting them to have all that in place. What happens if all of a sudden they close down, they go out of business, or your main tech goes on vacation or quits or moves across the U.S. or whatever? Now
Right.
you have nothing. And
A good
so,
point. Yep.
yeah,
I mean, it's and the other question to ask is, how do you document those things in your system? Not only from a security perspective, but what is your policy internally? So that way, as in your example, a technician leaves, right?
hmm
Sometimes we get what I like to call geek attachment, right? Customers, especially other MSPs, if there's a high level technician, these customers will actually attach that one particular geek, and that geek knows it all about their environment. They know the
hmm
passwords in the environment, they know the nuances of the environment. But if that person leaves, if that person has a family emergency, if that person goes on vacation, you are no longer able to be supported.
yeah,
So it's actually an organizational responsibility on both sides to know that information is being captured, documented, and available as necessary so that you get the support you need when you need it.
yeah, yeah. I've even heard of a situation where there was a one person IT company, and I mean, unfortunately, but the guy died, and he wasn't giving out any documentation. So now these companies were in a position to where they had to find a new IT company, right away, but they also could not give them any passwords and any documentation. And it can just put your company in a very bad
Right.
situation.
Here's the other aspect of it. When you actually see the passwords and you understand how things are being established from a pattern perspective, just based on what's going on with the news, you may find that your provider is actually using weak passwords in your environment.
Right.
And without that visibility, you'd have no idea. So it also becomes a secondary check to you to go, hey, what are our passwords? Are they secure, right? 12 or more characters, depending on the implementation server, more if it's a higher end security device, whatever. But at least you're starting to see some minimum requirements of length and complexity that you would even have visibility on if they weren't providing that documentation.
Yeah, and then getting regular copies is the other side of it. If they're doing their job right, they're changing, rotating passwords, and just keeping up to date with newer copies,
Right.
annually or at least in some regular form.
Yep.
Um, yeah, yeah, that's just probably one of the biggest things that we have seen around here. And that
Well, I
kind of
think,
leads into. Oh, go ahead.
oh, and I was going to say that, the next segue from documentation perspective, we've talked about backup, we've talked about documentation. You have to go to the security context now as well, right? Because it used to be the days you could put an antivirus tool on and that's all you needed for security. But now, based on defense and layers, if your IT provider isn't looking at a posture of risk reduction by layering security for you and providing expertise within that stack, or broaden expertise to make sure that things are being managed and monitored, you're probably not secure.
Right. Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. And yeah, this leads into my next item is keeping in communication with your IT company. If you're only hearing from them when you've called them to report a problem, that's another just huge red flag. You need to
Right.
be having regular communication. QBRs is quarterly business reviews are really help. Um, but yeah, just staying in the know of what's going on doesn't have to be on technical sense, but tell me about what's been going on the last 3 months in my company. What issues have you been seeing? How is our security? Show me some reports,
Right.
information.
Yep.
And just having that dialogue can really open up of, yeah, we've actually been having this reoccurring issue. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's find out what the root cause of that issue is.
Yep. Yeah. One of our 6 key areas we focus on is actually the word presence. Right. With the tools nowadays from an IT provider, you can do a lot of work remotely. Remote work doesn't
Mm-hmm.
provide you presence of your environment, and it doesn't actually help confidence with who's bringing in who, and we have this different employee who's coming. So we always focus on actually being present for our customers on certain intervals. So one day it may be one of my techs is there looking at some things. We do a server check every time we go on site, because we want you to
Mm-hmm.
see that besides remotely watching that server and maintaining stuff, we are physically looking at that environment and making sure that we are documenting and understanding what's going on with different things.
Right. Yeah. Say, for example, for whatever reason, your monitoring had a bug in it or just didn't report a hard drive failing issue. Walking into that
Oh
server
yeah,
room, just putting eyes on those blinky lights, you'll
we
see
have
that one is amber. And, that way you can catch it before it actually causes further issues.
we have absolutely experienced where the RAID software reporting did not report a failing hard
Hmm.
drive. And when you physically did the inspection, you saw the amber, even though the software itself was showing the drive is actually working condition.
Yeah.
Um, no, very key. Physical inspections are an important thing.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Last item I had on my list, which I find it, I mean, it's sad, but it's just another big one for me, is that IT companies say, "Oh yeah, we manage your system remotely and we're monitoring and we're keeping up on all this stuff, seeing the threats or watching your backup." But then when you actually ask them to report, that information, or as us, another IT company, we come in and you say, "Oh yeah, we were told our backups are great." And you look and there hasn't been a successful backup in 3 months, six
Yep.
months. I mean, I've come into those situations, and the owner is, always just so surprised. And sometimes I've been brought in because it was too late. You had a failed server, and you go and look at those backups that were supposed to happen, and they just haven't been run. So the IT companies say they're monitoring. Maybe they are. Maybe they're getting these alerts. Maybe they're just too busy to do anything about it. But it happens quite a bit. And it's on the security level, backups, patch management, just all kinds of not actually doing anything about the alerts.
Well, and I think that goes back to the conversation that, at some point you have to be responsible as an IT provider to actually deliver what you say. And
Mm-hmm.
based on everything becoming so large a scope, you have to find the right expertise or the right tools. And you can't rely solely on automation. One of our partners,
Right.
Blockworks, actually talks about how it's automation with human validation. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's, key. The other thing that's key, which is also Blockworks, Rob Bulls, he actually says 90% secure is 100% insecure. And I think that's the posture that you want an IT provider to start looking at. It's not up to you to go to your IT provider and say, "Hey, look, I think I have a security vulnerability." It's actually up to the IT provider to say, "Hey, these are things we're doing." And it's a very active posture so that you understand where are you from a risk perspective? What are things that you can invest in to mitigate that risk? What are some trainings or behaviors you can change within your organization staff to mitigate your risk? And if you're not talking about those things driven by the IT provider's dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to have a successful security practice for your organization.
Yeah, and expectations is another part of it. Knowing, in this situation, what to expect or who to go to, or to what level of security I actually am.
Right. And even talking about, what antivirus do you use? How do you manage that? I've actually come into environments where there's been no antivirus or any type of security tool installed on all the devices.
Hmm. Right,
And,
just
the
never
customer
happened
had no
during
idea.
onboarding or something. Yeah.
No, the posture was that Windows Defender was good enough.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it may be good enough. Our posture is we're not going to take that risk. We're always going to have something secondary that we know is
Yeah,
right,
or layer it.
proven, advancing, correct. Yep.
Yeah. That's great. Um, yeah, do you have any other closing comments or anything before we wrap up?
I probably the biggest thing that we see with other IT providers is watching if you ever so often see a salesperson come in and block and tackle when it comes to you getting IT support that you want. Now, engineer technical resources, we completely understand there's certain ones that you don't want direct contact to from an MSP perspective to a customer. But if every dialogue has the potential to be a dollar exchange,
Hmm.
that provider probably isn't working within your best interest. So it's nice to have a
Right.
good relationship with the people there from a sales perspective, but you really want to be able to have a good relationship and understand that anytime you call for tech support, I'm getting a technician when I dial the support number. It's
Hmm.
not being converted to a ticket, swung over to, the account manager for review before things started getting helped. I've seen this a lot. One of my last onboardings, I felt like I dealt with the account manager more than I actually dealt with the technical people at the company.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Just trying to throw in more charges and more opportunities for them.
Right. And they were the ones who controlled most of the data exchange when it came to passwords and everything else. I
Hmm.
mean, to me, my engineers have a way greater protocol when it comes to managing data security at rest and transit than, maybe some account manager may have at another
Hmm.
company, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's different barriers to how data is actually provided privilege, right?
And
Um,
proper way of exchanging that data too. I've had
correct.
IT companies just, oh yeah, here's some passwords that we have, and they'll just email it straight to us in plain text. I'm like, oh my gosh, what'd you just do?
Right, right. Yeah. There's reason why we have best practices, and you want to make sure that your IT provider is following those best practices because that's your
Hmm.
data being put out there in non encrypted or secure ways.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, as a last kind of closing item, I want to offer everybody a ebook that we put together. And so I'm not great at book titles, but I named it 11 Security Steps Your IT is Not Doing and Why It's Critical to Start Now. This is a collection of, again, non-technical, like what we've been talking about, but it is exact items that over the years, we've been in business over 10 years now, that we've just very commonly found that we've done onboarding, been helping a company, and keep finding that their previous IT company was just not doing these, and they're very big um, items that have to be addressed. And so this will be a talking point with your current IT company where you can just ask them simple questions and get responses and kind of correct these mistakes.
And that's
But
probably a key point, Chris, is that you're
yeah,
framing the dialogue so
right.
customers know what questions to ask their providers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This isn't a you have to work with us to get this. This is you can take it to anyone you want, and it's yeah, opening up communication or dialogue. Yeah. Well, Gary, thank you very much for joining us,
Thanks,
and
Chris.
hope to have you on again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yep. Take care.
Sure. Bye bye.